Before we get started in this nice long retouching video, I'd like to show you a few of the examples we're going to create along the way. So we'll do some basic retouching like this. So before, after, that's using the healing brush. I want to show you a section where we move, say, these piercings here using the clone tool stamp. A lot of people forget about this awesome tool. I'll show you ways to duplicate things and also just remove them completely from images. I'll show you retouching techniques where you can remove the shine from my shiny face. Techniques for kind of removing the wrinkles and bags under people's eyes. It's my pretty face again, and in this one we're gonna do this kind of like liquify technique where we're gonna go a little extreme in one version, but I'll show you how it works nicely, doing subtle adjustments as well as this kind of like crazy one here. We're going to do a simple exercise like this that uses a vanishing point so we can mock up things on walls. We learn it here mainly so we can do this one. You can see the lights here at the top here. Watch this. We can kind of clone tool stamp them out of the way because we've got this really clear perspective, and it can be hard without using vanishing point. We'll retouch skin. I'll show you how to make specific selections for skin and what to do to kind of fix it up if it needs adjustment. Like this one here where it's quite red in the skin. Okay, I'll show you how to make it, do a selection and kind of reduce the sunburny redness. Before the end of the course, we'll look at adjusting eyes and kind of enhancing them like this. Before, after, before, after. Cool, huh? That's one technique. We'll look at another technique where we take the same image, but we do some even more kind of exotic adjustments. You can see here all that kind of detail in the eye. Before, after. We'll look at how to fix teeth, before, after, before, after. Same thing with this guy. We can kind of tidy it up nicely. So there is a lot of things to cover in this course. I'll pass it over to the real me for a little introduction, and let's get started. Hi there, my name is Dan. There are exercise files for this video so you can play along. You can download them free from the link in the description. Just note that it's extract from my longer Photoshop Advanced course. If you want to check out the full course, there'll be a link in the description as well. All right, get in there, enjoy the class. Hi there, this video is all about going through some healing brush, more advanced tips and tricks. You probably already know how to use it. I'm just going to show you what I do to make it go fast and to give you some better results. Let's jump in. All right, to get started, let's open up Healing 1. Thank you, Bruce Dixon. So before we get started, we're going to use the healing brush. It's the more advanced tool, but I just want to remind you that the spot healing brush, which is this one here, okay, the automatic one, if you haven't used it for a while, it has got so much better, especially with the introduction of content aware. And when I'm doing professional retouching, it is like 70% of the work. It's just too easy. A couple of tricks to get good use of it, okay, is to make sure you're working on a separate layer. We're going to call this one retouch. Make sure sample all layers is on, otherwise it won't work, okay, because it's going to reach through to this bottom layer, but everything's going to end up on this layer that we can turn off afterwards. So pick a brush size, pick a hardness, and just click once. It is just pretty amazing. Don't want to get too close to the edges. Okay, so bulk of the work gets done with this tool. Tips for using this tool. Okay, so say we've got a chunk here, we want to get rid of this long hair. We can probably just paint it out, but I guess I just really want to show you my trick. Okay, you click once, hold shift and click again, and it joins the two lines. Okay, so if you've got like a long seam that you need to fix up, you can click once, hold shift and click again, and it just joins the two up. And because we used its own layer, you can start to see everything's on its own retouch layer. And what will end up happening is you'll end up going too far and you need to kind of dial it back. So with this layer selected and your move tool selected, so I'm at an opacity of 100%. I can just tap 5 on my keyboard and it's at 50. So it's just a lot easier. I'm not even looking at this or dragging. I'm just looking at my image super close, just kind of tapping. If you tap fast, like if I tap 3, I get 33. I'm gonna go to 80. So they're still there. They're just heavily reduced, even a little bit less, 70. More realism. But let's say the spot healing brush isn't working for you in your instance. I'm gonna turn that layer off and create a new one. Okay, this is gonna be my retouch 2. We're gonna use the healing brush by itself now and show you how to use this because we didn't cover it in the essentials. So what we're gonna do is click and hold down the spot healing brush, grab the healing brush. It works the same way, except I get to be in a lot more control. Okay, so the spot healing brush just goes and finds pixels and just gonna guess. What you can do is you can hold down the Option key on a Mac or the Alt key on a PC and click a target. Okay, just say, I want to use this bit of skin, please. Don't just pick anything. Pick this bit from all the way over here. So that's Option on a Mac, Alt on a PC, and you click once and then let go. And this is totally not gonna work because I haven't done this one that says current layer. I wanna sample all the layers, please. So set the target again, and now click and drag, and watch what I'm dragging. It's a little hard to see. I'll get the editor to zoom in. Can you see the target clicking and dragging and moving around? Okay, so you can kind of see where it's pulling from. Did just as a good job, just gives you a bit more control. You click, drag, let go. It gets fancier if you open up the window and go to the one that says clone source. It works for both the clone tool stamp, which we'll do in the next video, and this healing brush. And you can have more than one source. So at the moment it's just using this. It's pulling from this particular document. Okay, if I click there, that's where it is. What you can do is you can set up a group, okay, at least 5 different points you want to pull from. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say I want some kind of really light texture over here. So this first one, it's going to be my lightest option. This next option here could be from a completely different document. Just have it open and steal from that. It'll load into the clone source. But I want a kind of a medium kind of texture, that one there. I find I use this only when there's like a really high ISO and there's a real grain in the image and you need to kind of match the grain. In this case, we're matching kind of skin texture, but you get the idea. So I set a medium point here, darker, darker, darker. And here's going to be kind of where I find something that's the darkest part of the skin, probably across here. So now when I'm working, I can come down here and say, actually, this piece here is probably going to work with that first one I took. Then where is something else? This one here is a bit lighter, so I'm going to go to this lighter option. Over here is my medium. A little bit darker than medium, okay? And I'm not really taking the darkness of it because the healing brush will match the colors, but the texture that appears in these kind of dark areas, okay, just end up being a different kind of grain than the stuff that are in the lighter areas. Again, you might decide on skin texture. You might have, number one is stuff from this kind of clear patch on the forehead. So you might decide number one here is the texture from the skin from the forehead, and number two is the kind of porous one here from the nose. There's a little bit of like tiny hairs that are there. So that's just taking that a little bit further. And if I'm honest, even when I was doing like full-time retouching, I didn't use these points very often. There's a lot of this. Okay, I'll show you a bit more of the workflow that I did. But I want to show you that feature because some people do really like it. So let's say we're working in nice and close. Spacebar is obviously a really useful one. Another really helpful one, say I'm in real tight and I need to get a new sample point from the other side of the face. So spacebar, click and drag, and I can find it. The other side of the face is probably not that hard. Chin, I'm gonna go down to the chin and there it is. Okay, so it's not particularly hard here, but let's say I wanna go to somewhere I'm not too sure yet. Let's say I wanna go up to the forehead. Instead of clicking and dragging, just hold down the H key. Click and hold down the H key on your keyboard. Then click and hold down the mouse key and you can go over here, let go. Click and hold the H key, move down, start working on the arm. So it means I've always got my healing brush selected and the H just moves to the hand tool temporarily. It's like that navigator window that used to be up here. Another handy trick is I find I like to kind of move the object around, especially when I'm working on say the edges here. Okay, you can use this tool here. Okay, it's the rotate tool, or there's the hand tool there. What I do is on the healing brush, just hold down the R key and just drag it around, okay, and decide I'm going to be working here, okay. I'm just going to kind of move along this edge. I find, especially with my Wacom tablet, my range of movement is a lot better when I have this thing rotated to an angle that kind of suits my kind of wrist movements. Escape to get rid of it. If you tap the R key, it just moves to it, so you got to go back to the healing brush. But if you click and hold the R key, it's kind of like just temporarily doing it. Same with the H key, same sort of principle. The one last thing I'll show you is this aligned on and off. There's times where it's great on and times where it's not so great. So let's say that I am escaping to get back out of here. I'm going to zoom to 100%. Show you what it does. Let's zoom in. So with it aligned, what's going to happen is if I set my point here and I like this, but I start dragging across, can you see the little target? Okay, and if I let go because I got close to the edge, then I come back again and start drawing again, can you see it goes back to where it started? Okay, so it's kind of aligned perfectly from wherever this is. It doesn't really matter. Can you see it keeps following it? It's exactly kind of like 200 pixels across and 200 pixels down. Doesn't matter where you are. If I end up over here, can you see it's grabbing bits of the chin there? Totally wrecking this. Let's go undo. Whereas let's say we've only got like one patch of nice skin, okay? The rest of it needs a lot of work. You can set it there and it doesn't matter where you are, okay? I can click over here now and can you see it's still pulling from that original image, so it's not aligned anymore. Okay, so if you've got one and you're kind of building it out, it doesn't have to be skin, say it's some brickwork or grass. You've just got a nice patch and you just want to keep going back to that. The only trouble with it is that you're going to have repetition potentially. All right, so that's going to be it for the healing brush. Let's move on next to the clone tool stamp. Don't think about skipping that one. The healing brush, yes, took a lot of the work from the clone tool stamp, but there are some cool tricks, which I'll show you, that make it useful to go into your toolkit. I'll see you there. Hi there, this video is all about the clone tool stamp. The healing brush is amazing, but there's just times, especially along there, there's edges like this nose ring here. We just need a little bit of clone tool stamp help. If you already know how to use it, there's a couple of little tips in here that you might not know about, so hang about and let's go clone tool stamping. All right, let's open up the clone tool 1. So working on this image, there are parts of it that are going to be easy to do with a healing brush, but there's going to be some tough parts that are going to need some clone tool stamp. So these spots here, spot healing brush is going to be the one that I'm going to use. Just going to work on these. Now when you are working, remember, undo, make sure you got your own layer, retouch, so you can kind of turn it off or adjust it later on. So here's perfect. And then we get to this nose ring, say we want to remove it. The trouble with it is if I try and paint it out, it's going to kind of get all milky and yuck across it. So I'm going to undo. So let's start with the inside nose here. So the clone tool stamp is like the healing brush we learned in the last video. We can set a target, but instead of, let's have a quick little look. If I set a target of the eye here and paint, watch this. When I paint, if I let go now, the healing brush would try and blend it in, whereas the clone tool stamp does none of that. Basically just a copy and paste, but in a brush. Cool. So where this is helpful is, say along these edges here, it's very clear. I don't want it all milky and blended like the healing brush does. I want to set a target of, say, maybe this nostril. Okay, and I want to paint it over here, but you can see the angle's not right. And this is where I guess the little trick is for the clone tool stamp, okay, is rotating it around. So in this clone source, you can go to Window, Clone Source. There's an angle here, and you can drag this around, okay, and you can see I can drag it left and right to try and get it so it lines up. There's a shortcut for moving it around. Okay, if you hold down the Option key on a Mac and Shift, or Alt key on a PC and Shift, and then tap the less than key or the greater than key to rotate it. You can see up in my clone tool stamp, it's going in like little tiny increments. Okay, so if you need to do a big swipe, it's probably better just to drag it across here. You can see I've kind of got it here. I'm just tapping it around, holding it down even, just to get it to where I want. And now, even though I'm pulling from over here, hopefully, it's going to retain that edge. Even just going to paint in a bit of this. All right, same with this edge here. I'm going to, you can see it remembers the rotations. That's not going to work. So doesn't really need to be rotated across here. I'm going to grab this part. And I will rotate it. Always go the wrong way. Cool, bit of that side as well. All right, and the other parts are gonna be just the spot healing brush. It'll do great work of this in here, mostly. Paint it all out. Awesome. There's a bit there that I left behind. So it's a mixture of both. Do I use the clone tool stamp all the time? Nope, it's once every now and again. We'll do the same thing over here. I'll show you one last little trick. So I'm gonna grab you and I wanna paint across this bit. It needs to rotate just a bit. I can use my shortcut, but say it is like, dragging this thing's a bit weird. You click, hold, and drag, and if you hold it for long enough and drag it, you can start to see what the original is being rotated with. It's hard to understand unless you're using it all the time. So just drag it one way, check it, drag it the other way. But what you can do is I'm gonna reset it. If you do need to go in big increments, okay, say you set a target for there, and it needs to go over here, what you can do is click once in there, put it kind of where you need it to be, and then hold shift and just use your up arrow. And you can see it kind of moving across there. So I'm holding up and it's moving in just bigger chunks. Is this faster? Not the angle that I picked. Okay, and it's not the right bit of the air either, but I guess I just wanted to show you. So I'm gonna reset that, set my target, and it does need to go around a little bit. So remember, Option, Shift, and I'm using comma or the greater than. If you're on a PC, member, it's Alt and Shift. I'm just gonna paint across here and probably paint out a little bit as well. Grab another bit, rotate it around a bit more. Cool, so it's the right angle now. I can kind of paint in here to a part. Awesome. Same with over here, I'm gonna need a smaller brush. Down here, but it needs rotating. Grab that bit. Around a bit, rotate around, just to kind of go around that corner. And then zoom out, and probably need a bit of work on the hand as well, where it joins the two. And because it's on its own layer, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off. There's a little bit of work there that I want to go back and do. But I hope you learned something new about the clone tool stamp. Let's get into the next video. Hi there, welcome to the patch tool video. What does it do? It's really good at duplicating people, but that's not its main use. It's really good for getting rid of large objects all in one go. It gets used quite a lot in retouching for removing things like bags under eyes, where there's just a lot of surface area to change. And my favorite use, shiny Dan, not so shiny Dan. Shiny, not shiny, shiny. It's great when you are stressed because you don't like getting photographed and there's people watching that you don't know. Stress Dan, calm Dan. Stress Dan, calm Dan. All right, I'm gonna stop talking about myself in the third person and let's get into the patch tool. All right, from your exercise files, open up patch tool 1, 2, and 3. We're gonna start with number 1. So the skinny version is patch tool just removes things. It's like the spot healing brush or the clone tool stamp, but it has its own purpose. Let's say I'm using the spot healing brush, and in another tutorial in the essentials course, we just kind of painted people out and that worked most of the time. But let's say this one here, because this person crosses background here, we're just letting Photoshop guess, right? And it's done a pretty good job. There's some messing down here. If I undo it and do it again though, it's kind of one of those tools where you've just got to cross your fingers. And sometimes it's great, and then sometimes really bad. So I'm going to go back again. So the patch tool is hidden underneath the rest of these spot healing brushes. And it's more about, think of the patch tool as intentionality. Like I'm going to draw a box around the outside of him. I say box, a squiggly line. Click and drag around the outside. The cool thing about it is make sure you're set to source and then just click, hold and drag. And then can you see what I'm doing here? I'm intentionally saying, I want you to kind of use this area here, then let go. It does a very similar job, but I give it some kind of boundaries. So I'm going to deselect. There's a little bit of work there that I might go into with the spot healing brush, but to be honest, if I showed you this image beforehand, I bet you wouldn't notice. Sometimes I get a bit too hung up on doing details that, like, is that a detail? Nope, that's just part of the original image. So I'm going to ignore it. Now the one thing, and what we've done in the previous tutorials, is we all went, okay, new layer, make sure it's selecting all the way up. Doesn't work. Okay, so you actually have to be on your original layer, so you should do a backup first, which I haven't done. The quick way to do it is either click and drag this down or just hold Command J or Control J on a PC, and it just, whatever layer you've got selected or groups of layers, it makes it duplicate. I've already wrecked the bottom layer, so let's just carry on. The other thing to know about the patch tool is this thing here, you're meant to drag it around and I'm not very good with it. Okay, this is a rectangle. Wish I could just use my rectangle tool and then switch to the patch tool and pull from there, please. Cool, huh? So you can use the lasso tool or the quick selection tool, whatever you want. You don't have to use this kind of built-in selection tool. The other thing to do with the patch tool, there's a few things we're going to learn about it. The other thing to know about it though is if I go to File Revert's just a handy one, nothing to do with the patch tool. Just get you back to when the document was last saved instead of going undo for a million times. Let's say it's got a kind of another use. So I've got my patch tool here. I'm going to do the same thing, squiggly line. Oh geez. Okay, it's not bad. Most of the time you want to use it to source. This one here you can use destination. So we're doing a different thing now. We're saying instead of you kind of removing, I'm going to drag them along here and watch this. Adds a new guy. I use that never, but it's there. And we're getting advanced and you might have a really good use for it. Let's go to patch tool 2. So in terms of retouching, often it's the spot healing brush, a little bit of clone tool stamp, where with a patch tool, there's kind of two places it gets used. And it's anything that's like a large part that needs to get updated. Okay, so we're actually going to Command J this one this time. I'm even going to call it retouch. And I grab my lasso tool and I'm just going to grab everything kind of underneath here. And instead of destination, make sure it's on source. Click, hold and drag it to a nice bit of skin. Let go. I'm going to deselect. You can see there, it's just nice for doing larger chunks. If you've ever watched any YouTube channel on patch tool, basically this is the one thing it gets used for. To add a little bit of extra awesomeness to it, I'm going to undo before I've done it. So I'm back here, I've done my selection. What I'm going to do is there's a little known feature in Photoshop. It's not just the patch tool. Watch this, I do this and it can get very fake very quickly because we do have wrinkles under our eyes, okay? So what we can do is, first of all, so what I want to show you is under Edit, and this one here says Fade Patch Selection. Now this will say fade whatever the last thing you did. It's really handy. It's like an undo, but it's got an opacity slider. So that is, I've done nothing. And I can kind of find just a happy medium of like, instead of it being perfect, just a little bit here. The nice thing about that is, if I click OK, deselect, I can let a bit of the background through. I could do it lowering the opacity of the layer if you're like, why don't you just do that? But that lets me do it per actual selection. So some of them you don't want it to be completely unfaded. So some of them you want to be faded more than others. So I'm gonna grab this, we're ignoring the chainsaw in the background. And this one here I want to fade, but I want it to be not as much as the first one. The other trick here is Command H. And depending if you're using a Mac or PC, if you're using a PC, it'll just work. It'll remove the marching ants just temporarily. On my Mac here, it's a shortcut that gets used both for Photoshop and for the Mac operating system. And Photoshop just says, hey, do you mean like hiding Photoshop or hide the extras? We want hide extras. The selection is still there. So Command H toggles it back on and off. And it just means when I do the fade, because it's a little hard to see the edges. Okay, so if I go to fade now and I drag it back, without that selection there, it just becomes a little bit handier. Find a happy medium. You can see you can kind of individually fade parts. You might find that useful. Okay, so it's great for large patches, hence the patch tool. Why I find it super useful is, here's me, shiny me. Okay, so the patch tool is really good at Command J. Grab the patch tool, I'm gonna draw this around here. Shiny bits of skin, it's really good for. Grab all of that. Get a bit more specific, grab this part. Goodbye, Shiny Dan. Same with the forehead here. You find a non-shiny bit of forehead. Off. Let's turn that on and off. If you try and do it individually with the spot healing brush, you can get lucky. For this, remember, intentionality, the patch tool, we say go here exactly. All right, patch tool, that is you done. Let's get into the next video. Hey, it's me again. I just want to quickly jump in. If you're watching but not following along, you can download the exercise files that I'm using in this course free of charge. They are down in the link in the description. Also note that quickly check this stuff out. This is some of the content we create in the Photoshop Essentials and Photoshop Advanced course. It's a mixture of creating beautiful Photoshop work as well as all the professional workflow tricks and techniques. It's my paid course. There is a link in the description for that paid course. So if you like my teaching style and you like what you see here, check it out. But for now, let's continue on with the free stuff here. You don't want to hear me talking anymore. Let's get going. All right, it is class project time. In your 10 retouching folder, there's another folder called class project. Inside there is retouch 1. Thank you, Nino Ubizo. In your class projects, these are the 3 tools I want you to use to practice. So the healing brush, but not the spot healing brush. Use the manual one. Be intentional. Get used to that. Setting targets if you haven't done that before, making sure it's on our own layer so that the retouching goes through to the bottom layer. You're gonna have to use the clone tool stamp, especially around, let's have a look, this part here, especially where the shirt kind of crosses over here. You're gonna have to rotate it around a little bit as well to match it, probably along the back here as well. That's gonna be probably the toughest part. Other than that toughest part, I'm gonna use the patch tool, and that's gonna be good for these larger chunks of the chain on the shirt here. So selections and kind of moving it across. So the end result is I want to remove some of his spots from his face, the chain gone, and that's it. I want to keep him quite natural. So that is your job. I don't mind if you go a little overboard doing your practicing or if you keep it super subtle, but I'd love to see what you do. So the last step here is share with me, either via the assignments here or the comments, or hit me up on social media. Instagram is bring your own laptop. Just tag me in it and I'll see it. I always comment. It's cool to see what people do. And that is us. Let's get into the next video. Hi there, this video is all about using liquify to retouch, specifically using Photoshop's kind of facial recognition. Just when you thought this man couldn't get any more handsome, 5 head, 4 head. More manly chin, just drag it out. Everyone looks cuter with bigger eyes. Ah, look at me. We're gonna go from smirk to, approachable, smiley man. Lips as well, definitely need bigger lips. All right, it is that easy. Let's look how to do it in Photoshop. All right, to get started, let's go to 10 retouching and open up liquify, Face Aware 1 and 2. We're going to start with this handsome devil, and we're going to use filter and we're going to use liquify, but we're going to be professionals. So we are going to right click background and say you are a smart object first, so we can turn it on and off. Good to compare our adjustments, and later on we just turn it off if we go too far. And we are going to go so far in this one because it's me. I'm allowed to distort my face as much as I like. You are too, I give you full permission. Now, if you open it up, it sometimes jumps to face detect anyway. If it doesn't, okay, go from our forward warp down to this little guy here, face tool. And somehow magically, every time I open an image with a face in it, it seems to just know where the eyes are, the nose are, the mouth. Like, face recognition is pretty amazing where it's just built into Photoshop. So cool. So you got 2 ways of distorting faces or adjusting. Okay, you can do it generically over here. Okay, there's this little drop down here that says Face Aware Liquify, or you can do it actually on the actual artwork. Let's do the generic stuff, and let's do eyes first. Let's make sure that we don't have to, but let's link them together so that when we adjust one side, they both come along. It can be really handy when there's just this like weird perspective. You know the person's eyes are the same size, but just the angle of the face, the bend in the lens just makes it look a bit weird. So you could, okay, go in here, break the link and just move one bigger than the other, make the other one smaller. Looking good, Dan. Okay, now you can just work your way through these, right? Okay, so I'm just gonna link all of these because it's experimenting. You can stretch the height of the eyes and the width, okay, separately from just the overall size. You can tilt them. Let's say I want to tilt this guy down a little bit. I just need to kind of rotate him around. Can you see? Wiggle, wiggle. Zoom in a bit more. Distance between the eyes. If you wish your eyes were just a little bit further apart or a little bit closer, there's a slider for that. Okay, so nose, mouth, they're all adjustable. But what you can do is with this tool selected, you can actually do it on the artwork. You can decide that all of these little dots have a different kind of adjustment. Okay, so you're looking for the little white dots. So nose height, nose width. One of my favorites, the lips. I can just, here you go, Dan. Look at that. Didn't quite grab my bottom lip. Looks like I've been punched. Really depends on how much of the lip you can see. So if you can't do it here, you might go in and actually go to the bloat tool. Okay, I'm gonna pick a brush size and I'm gonna just kind of express my lips manually. There we go. Now if we go back to face recognition, it's probably gonna pick up that lip a lot better. These ones are cool. You can give yourself a smile. It's weird doing it to yourself. I'm smiling, he's smiling. This photo I was going for like cool, serious Photoshop trainer. Now fun, approachable Photoshop trainer. It's pretty amazing how it locks in all the different muscles. For me, what I really want is I want a nice big chin. Here you go, looking manly. Now I can just keep going and adjusting. You get the idea, right? So face recognition, pretty amazing. You can adjust them globally over here or just on the art. Just work your way around and decide what you want to do. The other one to mention is, and probably for me the most, is my forehead. I've been told I have a 5 head, mainly by my little brother. So I can reduce that a little bit. I need to Photoshop in maybe a fringe. My fringe is about halfway down the back of my head now. Anyway, if you go too far, you can click reset. Let's click OK. But because we did it on its own smart filter, we can turn it on and off. Okay. The only other thing really to share with you is that you can do it for groups of photos, which is pretty amazing. When I say groups of photos, I mean groups of people in photos. Somehow facial recognition works for lots of people. Okay, same tool. I should have made it a smart object first, but what you can do up here, you can select the different faces. Okay, you can see face, just left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can pick the 5th person and say, you, my friend, need big eyes. You, my friend, need to smile more. There we go, everybody. He's smiling. He's kind of smiling. She's not smiling enough. Come on, let's go. The one thing I'll do before we go is that, say when I'm retouching, often the kind of main trick is to make the eyes a little bigger. You don't want to go too far. So we went quite far in this tutorial. Okay, we just yanked them up because it's funny. But when you're doing serious retouching, it's all about the subtleties. People look happier, healthier, prettier when their eyes are just bigger. Okay, so I'm gonna lock these two together. I'm just gonna make this guy's eyes. So you end up doing like these tiny subtle adjustments. What you're looking for is this. Remember Puss in Boots? Okay, people look cuter when their eyes are bigger, especially when their pupils are bigger. And what we used to do is just grab bloat tool. Okay, couple of clicks, gone a bit far, but you get the idea. I did a lot of work for a swimwear company. They did a lot of men's bathing suits. And what the art director wanted was, he wanted guys, but he wanted them quite feminine. So we ended up messing in with the cheekbones and kind of, messing with the face to kind of give them a bit more feminine features, rather than the one we did with me where we give ourselves a nice big thick jawline. If you ever used Liquify to do this before, it was really hard. To do it naturally, now we've just got sliders. I can't believe how good it is. And the trick for us as Photoshop users is how subtle we need to be. Like, especially if you're doing work for, say, models, kind of portraitures, you don't want your kind of finished product not to look like the person, especially messing with the eyes, distance of eyes, those types of things. You can end up changing a person that just doesn't look like that person anymore. It's only subtle little adjustments. You don't want them walking into an interview and people not recognizing them. Hey, this is not in your headshots. But lowering your 5 head down to a 4 head, I'm okay with that. This guy here, he's got a hat on, so it still kind of works. It's pretty amazing. All right, we're gonna click OK, undo, undo. Look how much more handsome this man is. All right, my friends, that is Liquify using facial recognition. Let's get into the next video where I set a pretty exciting class project. Hi there, I want to put this design on this wall. We're going to use an underutilized tool in Photoshop called Vanishing Point. Look at that, moves around the walls, perspective is all pretty awesome. It's a little bit jumpy, but you can't beat it for perspective matching. Look at that. All right, let's learn how to do that now in Photoshop. To get started, we're going to open up 2 files from your 10 retouching folder. There's Vanishing Point 1 and 2. The first one is a JPEG and it's going to open without any hassle. Because the second one is an AI file, Adobe Illustrator, it's going to come up with this little import PDF box. Now in this case, mine's defaulting to a 1164. I think that's the original size. This is something you might have to adjust depending on the image you're using. So try it first, whatever size it comes, but then you might have to resize it because if it's too big or too small, it's not going to look right. Don't worry about it for now. I've made sure it works perfect. I'm going to click OK. And it's just a graphic that I think we did this in the Illustrator Advanced course. If you're keen on Illustrator and 3D blobby text, you can go check out that course. So for this to work, we need to be on Vanishing Point 2. Let's go to Select All, and then just go to Edit Copy. So we just got it on our clipboard. We don't need this anymore. Back to Vanishing Point 1. Let's go to Filter, and let's go into Vanishing Point. So Vanishing Point allows us to create planes. So I'm going to draw out what I think is a square in here, because Photoshop doesn't know. We have to tell it. We have to say, I'm going to start there and kind of come down to about there. Whatever you pick, just kind of follow the lines of the bricks and then come back. How far back? You can see there, I'm trying to line that line up. I'm getting way back here for me. Click once, and then coming up, can you see I'm trying to line up that blue line following the ridge of the bricks, which is surprisingly hard. I want that last one to be straight up and down. I think I'm there. Cool. Now it's a little hard to see because it's blue. Hopefully you can see it. The way to test whether it works or not, or whether perspective is okay. So there's one of these white squares in the middle. Okay, so here's the first one. There's one at the end and somewhere in the middle. If I grab it and drag it down, you can see it's kind of following the brickwork. If yours is wrong, okay, so you get to the top here, I'm dragging the top middle one now. Okay, if I get to the top here, go slow. This program here, it's like a little mini program like Liquify, except this one crashes all the time, in my experience. It's this amazing tool that's been in there forever, but nobody uses it. So I don't think it gets much developer love. Anyway, say that it doesn't quite line up like mine does. You can grab these corners and adjust them. What will end up happening is eventually it'll say, you see that we're in red? If it goes red, it says there is no chance that that is a square wall. That's Photoshop going not even close. Like that's physically impossible. That's a twisted wall. If it goes yellow, it goes, you're kind of close to a wall. Okay, whereas it goes blue, it says, okay, that's a feasible flat shape that I can work with. Blue's good. Once you've got it, you can either click OK and go off and copy that graphic. We've already done that, right? We went Edit, Select All, Copy. All we need to do now is go to Paste. Weirdly, we can't use the long version. We're in this kind of like vanishing world. So you just got to use your shortcut. On my Mac, it's Command V. On a PC, it's Control V. Here you get this one with the dots around the outside. Just click it, hold it, and drag it. And hopefully, come on, it's freaking out. Drag it again. All right, and it started working. I'll leave that in there in the edit because that's just the way Vanishing Point works. It's a bit jumpy and clunky. It's really cool though. Awesome, huh? So I can slide this down and I know it's gonna kind of match the perspective. Very cool. All right, when you get it into the position, you might want to resize it. I made sure that our files that we're working with in this class work fine with it. So you might find this image way too big and you can get around it. It's probably easier going back into the other file and resizing it before you copy it. But if you want to, you can over here, there's a transform option. See this tool here? Okay, and it grabs the corners. I can hold shift and I can shrink it down and kind of get it to more the size that I want. Don't be afraid to zoom out. Sometimes the transforms end up being way off screen. So zoom right out, you might have to see your transform handled way out here. When you're happy with it, let's click OK. And yeah, it's kind of fused in there. All right, so we've done it the quick and dirty and bad way. Why? Because it's kind of fused to the background. So I'm going to undo and I'm going to show you some cool tricks. So let's go a little bit further. First, let's make a new layer. Make sure that layer is selected. There's nothing on it. Go back into Filter, Vanishing Point. Okay, let's drag out our wall again. Okay, my first wall, not a success. It says no way, Jose. I'm going to drag it down to the floor. It's getting close. This one here should give us a good indication. You can see it's not quite lining up with the floor. Awesome. Drag the top one up. Not quite perfect either. All right, so once you have jiggled it around, you can add another plane. To do that, you hold down the Command key on a Mac or the Control key on a PC, and you're looking for any of these middle options, not the corners. Okay, so there's a middle. We'll do the floor next. So hold down the Command key, click, hold, and drag out. And you'll see, hey, cool, huh? We've got a floor as well. We'll do this back kind of wall as well. So I'm going to click on this. You got to kind of click on them to get them to activate. So just click on them. I'm using this tool up here. It defaults to that tool. So I want this back plane. See this little white handle here? Hold down that Command key again, or Control key on a PC, and drag it out. And you can see this one here just didn't quite work. Okay, so it's just not matching the angle. And it's not that this isn't a square wall. It might not be, but it probably is. It's probably just the angle of the lens. We're just really close and the lens is doing some weird stuff to it. So we can swing these little planes. While I remember, and these are obviously good for doing walls, but really good for like book covers. Say you're doing an ebook, okay? You can do the front cover and the spine, and you can dump your mock-up onto it and it kind of folds itself around. But let's swing this guy here. So it's just the same thing. You grab the middle handle and just hold down the other key, which is on a Mac, Alt, which is Option. On a PC, it is Alt, okay? And just click, hold, and drag it. Go slow. Go very, very slow. You can see it's a bit weird. Okay, go super slow. If you find like, oh, it's moving all over the place, yeah, it does. Okay, so I'm swinging it and you can see left and right, kind of swings it like a door. And I'm trying to get my wall to line up with the bricks. Okay, so it's actually gonna have to swing around quite a bit. It's really finicky. Okay. I'm a pro. I've done this loads. I'm still finding it quite tough here. Cool. So I've swung it round close to my bricks. It's pretty good. So holding nothing down now, just grab that edge, that stretches it out, and it goes off into the distance. If it needs a bit more swinging, hold down the Option key on a Mac, hold key on a PC, and go mad, because it's really tough. You can do this one. This is probably just as finicky. Oh man. Okay, little trick is just click in there and use your up and down arrows, okay, to get it close. I'm happy with that. So now when we paste, so just like before, I've copied it already before we come in here. You can go back out. You can click OK, go and copy it, select all, copy, resize it if it needs to be, come back in here, go to select, filter, vanishing point, and our blue lines are back. Go to paste, and then you can click, hold, and drag. And the cool thing about it now is once it stops freaking out, come on, here we go. It'll go, hopefully, around the wall. Awesome, huh? Don't worry about the pixelization. It'll go, once we hit return, it's just kind of trying to do its thing. Super cool. Love it. All right, so I am going to go to here. I'm going to put this on the wall. I'm going to transform it. I'm not going to transform it. I'm happy with it. Click OK. The big trick there was, because we used a separate layer, you can see now it's on its own layer. And that is the vanishing point. Before we go, I'm going to show you how I would, in this case, mock it up a little bit better. Nothing to do with the vanishing point anymore, just tips and tricks. So what I'd first do is with this layer selected, I'd work on my blending modes. Who remembers the shortcut for blending modes? Yep, it's make sure you're in your move tool, otherwise it doesn't work. Hold down Shift and tap the plus key on your keyboard. So I'd work my way through here and just see if there's anything that worked for me. Like, I'd be like, I've already practiced, okay, and I know that there's nothing. Okay, so what I did was I left it at normal, and what you can do is I want to load this as a selection. Okay, there's a trick member. I can hold Command and click the thumbnail, and it just loads everything on that layer as a selection. If you're on a PC, it's Control and just click the thumbnail. I'm going to turn off that layer because what I want to do is on my background layer, I'm going to copy and paste. Because what I did was I just want a chunk of this, and what I wanted is all this pointing in here. Okay, the goop that goes between the bricks. I don't know if it's called pointing, but the cement that goes between them, they're white. I want them to be actually black. So I just inverted it. How do you invert stuff? It's under here. I know it's Control I, adjustments, invert. There it is there. Cool, so I've inverted it just so that that's black. I don't need it to be blue, so I'm going to hit Command Shift U, which makes it black and white. That's probably in here too, Command Shift U. There it is there, desaturate. Why? I'm just looking for shadows, right? I just want the lights and the darkness to apply to this thing here, which is just way too strong. Like it's crystal clear, it's perfect. I don't want that. So what I'm gonna do is turn them all back on. I'm gonna have this guy above him, and then I'm gonna find a blending mode for this to blend into the color, which is then on top of the wall. And it's not like, it looks kind of cool, multiply. Depends on what you were looking for. Okay, if you're presenting this to a client as a mock-up, you might just leave it full color, like look how awesome it's gonna be. But if you're looking for faking it, that one's kind of cool, hard light, linear light, luminosity. I think I'm happy with luminosity. Okay, and luminosity, I'm gonna lower the opacity of luminosity just so that it's there without destroying it too much. And that's the way I went about it. What you might do as well is that you'll find that this thing here has a good bit of grain in it, whereas my version here doesn't. It's like perfect because it's vector. So with that layer selected, we might add a bit of fake noise. So make sure it is a smart object so we can turn it off later on. Filter, noise, add noise. And I'm just gonna, where is he? Decide how much of this I want. Lots of noise, a little bit of noise. I probably want, I'm just guessing, but adding a bit of noise to try and match maybe the ISO or the kind of bit of the background can help. Another thing that can help is adding a corresponding noise to the background. It's kind of destroying the background just to blend it in, but that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for it to look realistic-ish. So smart object, I'm gonna select it and I'm gonna go back into my noise. I'm gonna use this one here because it should apply the exact same noise that I did last time. Click OK. And it's just so that they kind of match a bit more. Destroying the background, I know, but I think there's a more consistency across it. All right, and that is mocking up our design using the hidden treasure that is Vanishing Point. Let's get into the next video. Hi there, this video is all about using Vanishing Point to do some tricky stuff where we need to remove these lights along the top, but there's some weird perspective going on. We need to repeat this part down at this weird perspective, and then Vanishing Point comes along, helps us out, gets us 80% of the way there anyway. There's a little bit of fixing up to do, but let's explore how to use Vanishing Point to clone and heal at weird perspectives. All right, to get started, in your 10 retouching folder, grab Vanishing Point 3. And let's say our problem is here, we want to remove these lights. For what reason, I don't know, but it's a really good use of Vanishing Point. Let's just say the architect, the interior designer, didn't like them anymore, or let's say it's graffiti or rubbish or something other than lights. We just need to get rid of them. Even a person. So like we did in the last one, we need to set up, it's probably best to work on its own new layer. Then we go to filter, and we go to Vanishing Point, and we need to tell it the plane. So in this case, I want to kind of click here and come down here-ish, across here. It's pretty easy because there's, you know, a reasonable kind of vanishing point lines to follow. It's harder when it's just like natural ground. Works so much good with like structural architecture type stuff. Okay, click once and it's gone red because it says there's no chance that it's a flat object. So what I didn't do is I just kind of used the top up here and guessed it. So what I'm gonna do is drag it down these corners so that I use what I think is it's not perpendicular. I want, the word is at a right angle. That'll do. Okay, so I know that kind of crosses across there. Once you get it and you've used something in the object to get your right angle maybe, okay, is I can drag it out by grabbing the middle one. So now that is, it says it's blue, it says I believe you, I trust you that that is what you say it is. Now what you could do is, I could do this other plane here. Remember I can hold down Command key and drag that middle dot to make a new wall. But what I'll find is it's easier to work on one plane and then the other plane afterwards. Otherwise your clone tool stamping ends up running down the walls and it looks a bit weird. The other thing to note is, say we spend some time getting this Vanishing Point plane to look nice. I find I just click OK and then go back into it. Then it's committed to the history because Vanishing Point has a tendency of crashing. It's just been my experience. So at least when it crashes now, my plane is still there. If I spend half an hour in here retouching and it crashes, I have to go back and set up my plane and it's painful. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this here. It's called the stamp tool. Basically, it's a mixture of the clone tool stamp. That's not the word. It's called the clone stamp tool or the healing brush tool. They're one and the same. Basically, you can turn healing on and off here. So with it off, it's just the clone tool stamp. With it on, it starts blending colors. In this case, I want healing to be on. And in terms of the alignment, depending on what you want to do, I want it off in this instance. I'll show you why. So in terms of brushes, I'm going to have mine at about, what? About 150-ish, hardness at 50. Copy that for yours in this exercise. And the first thing we need to do is set a target. So setting a target is like the other tools. You hold down the Option key on a Mac and the Alt key on a PC and give it a click somewhere where you want to get started. So I'm going to say there. And what you'll see is, see the green target, that's where it's stealing from. And the cool thing about it is, watch this, when I just kind of move my mouse down, I'm not doing anything, I just kind of move my mouse down, you can see the perspective changes, and that's what makes this thing perfect. What makes this thing great for like stealing content from here and pasting it down here, because if you spend time and line it up, this is going to be always, everyone's biggest problem is lining this up. So I'm going to get this to here, line it up, moving my mouse around, click and drag. Cool, huh? Seems to blend in nicely. This brings us to this aligned. With it on, watch this, if I click and drag, and then let go and click and drag again, you see it's kind of starting where I left it. See the green cross? Keeps starting back there, and that might be fine, but there's lots of occasions where you turn that off. I'm going to undo a few times. Because what I want to do is I want to say, I want you to steal, because this is my only real good chunk that doesn't have any lights in it. Everything else is a bit weird. So what I want to do is click, hold, and drag. Okay, and when I let go, it goes back. See the green cross goes back to there. See, I'm going to go back to that originally sampled layer bit. Line it up again. This lining up is going to always be the downfall of us. Now I'm not going left and right, I should. left and right. Don't go up because it's getting the edge. Can you see that? I guess that's an important point. If I go up, you can see my green cross eventually gets close to the edge and I end up with this kind of weird line that appears along the top there. So I'm just going to make sure I work down, and I might use a slightly bigger brush. So I'm going to start there. Actually, no, I'm going to start again and paint over the top and just go wiggle back and forth a little bit. So I'm getting both the lines. There you go, let go. It's not till you let go before it starts blending things in. Don't go up. I just told you that, Dan. Okay, so I'm going to grab this bit here just to fix this bit in here. Bit of blending mode awesomeness. Don't go up. Just go down. I can do this. So there's bits over here. I'll set a target over here, try and get the line to line up. All right, you can start to see I've got a bit of duplication going on. I guess it's just one of the, not the pros or cons, it's just, you've got to be a bit more careful than I'm being. I'm going to try and fix it up by going over the top of it, try and get the spacing right. So you paint down to about there. I'm going to set up another one about here. And one more down here. All right, I'm going to try and get this last little bit here. Get everything to line up. Cool. Same with these guys. I'm going to set a target up here and try and line it up and paste it out. Just keep an eye on both your cursor. You can see the perspective line hasn't quite perfectly got it here. So I might just use a smaller brush so I'm not kind of destroying this too much. It's fiddly. I'm not going to lie to you. I picked a really fiddly example. I wish I just picked a brick wall like everyone else does. Architectural lines, a lot tougher. People are going to notice. Smaller brush, so pretty good. All right, these guys here, I can't really get rid of those lines in Vanishing Point because there was no there was none of these that didn't have one. So I'm going to click OK. Because it's on its own layer, I can kind of turn this on and off and see. Is it brilliant? Yeah, that's pretty good. Is it photorealistic? Probably not. But what I'm going to do is I am going to use, say, something like the spot healing brush to tidy this up. Okay, spot healing brush, maybe the patch tool. The only problem with the patch tool is that this is on its own layer, which is quite cool, but the patch tool doesn't work when there are two separate layers. So I'm going to select both of these and hit Command E, Control E to merge them together, or go to Layer, Merge Layers. And now these guys need a bit of work. So I'm going to use my lasso tool to grab this. Grab my patch tool, find somewhere that I like, and just kind of work my way through fixing these guys up. It's not perfect. It's way better than trying to do it with Edit Transform. What you can do now is go back into Vanishing Point and work out this last plane and see if you can duplicate this across a few times. No, I'll do that. Last thing we should do is this last plane here. Okay, there's a weird light hanging across it. So we're going to go to Own Layer, go to Vanishing Point. I'm going to hold the Command key down and grab this plane. And I'm going to click on this plane and hit Delete, actually Backspace to get rid of it. Let's get rid of the whole thing. That's okay. Put you in. Doesn't like it. Says yellow. Sorry, buddy. That's not a wall. You can see why. That's not great. Cool. Blue's better. Awesome. I'm going to grab my clone tool stamp. I'd probably go OK and then come back in. Let's do it. Filter Vanishing Point just in case it dies. Alright, and I'm going to try and replicate this over and over again over here. I have to make it just a tiny bit smaller because I don't want to bring in the lines from above. Clone tool stamp. I want you, buddy. My timer to be down a little bit so it's not grabbing the edge. bigger. And I'm going to set my target just a little bit further across. So I'm going to try and paint you into here. And with the healing brush on, it's going to try and blend that white that was there. So I'm going to turn it off. I just want the good old clone tool stamp, because the colors are blending pretty good. I'm going to grab this bit, set a target. A little bit that way, a little bit that way. Grab a middle bit. Here's some updates. Now that I've got all these colors in here, I might go and grab healing brush on to get it to blend in. Now I can see bits of white kind of poking through, so it's probably going to blend it. See, it's kind of yanking bits of the lights out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my selection tool and just make sure that this isn't just a little bit lower. Now using my clone tool stamp, I'm going to say, yep. I'm going to try and paint that bit in. Nicer. All right, this bit here as well. Beautiful. Let's click OK. All right, it's on its own layer, and we have fixed the roof-ish. You can see how the vanishing point got us 80% there, 90% there, some touch-ups with the patch tool or the spot healing brush. All right, so that is Vanishing Point. It has some quirks. Add it to your toolkit of Photoshop awesomeness. But as we saw here, it needed a little bit of extra love. Maybe the spot healing brush, the patch tool, but it can be super helpful for getting the kind of big stuff locked in. All right, on to the next video. Hey there, it's class project time. In your 10 retouching folder, under class project, there's these two, Vanishing Point A and B. I want you to take this whale we made in our Illustrator class and put it on this building. So I want you to mock it up like we did in the first of the 2 Vanishing Point videos where we mocked up the kind of graffiti thing on the wall. I want you to wrap it around the building. It can be small on this building. It could be wrapped around both buildings, maybe down the side. It's up to you, but I want it to feel like it was there. What I'd also like you to do is I want you to remove the antennae along the top and move these lights here off the front. And when you're finished, I'd like you to share it with me. See how you went. So 2 images, put the whale on the building, remove the lights and the antennae. Not sure why I'm saying antennae, antennae. You know what I mean, the satellite things off the roof. All right, on to the next video. Once you've done your homework, you stay here. I'll be back when you're finished. Hi there, this video is all about how to make really quick selections for skin. In this case, we just warmed up her skin a little bit. And this one here, we removed a bit of the red cast from her face. But it's all about how to get this really quick skin selection using Adobe Photoshop. First thing is in 10 retouching, open up skin tone 1 and 2. So skin tone 1, we're just going to select and just warm up the skin. And skin tone 2, we're going to remove just a little bit of a red cast. We're going back to a tool we've used before. Okay, I've kept it in the retouching section. It's hard to know where to split these things up, but I figured if you're coming back to this, retouching is a good place for it. So what we want to do is select all the skin tones, and under select, color range, we kind of ignored it earlier on. There's an option that says skin tones, and it works pretty good. There's an option that says detect faces, and I find that can be good and can be bad. I find in this case it's not working as well. I want some of this kind of mid-tones here in the skin. Play around with the fuzziness, high, low. I want to get it so that it's getting a lot of the skin, but not too much of the background. So this thing here, think of it less as detecting faces and think option 1, option 2. Option 2 is fine for me now. If yours isn't doing the same as mine, you can select it to grayscale down here, and let's click OK. With that selection, I can go to adjustments, and let's say I just want to warm it up. What I find the most handy is using color balance. There's this like little scales here, this balance one. You can play around with all 3 of these. Probably midtones is going to give us our most adjustment. Okay, and I'm just going to warm up. So go from blue to yellow, from cyan, just a little bit red. Turn the eyeball on and off, just to warm up the skin. Now what you'll also notice is that it grabbed a lot of the background. So a nice easy way to fix that is to paint it out on the mask. But we're going to use our trick. We hold down the Option key on a Mac or the Alt key on a PC and just click on the mask. It goes fully black and white. Then when we're using our brush tool, black is my foreground color, make a size, hardness, I'm going to pick that. Because what I want to do is I want to leave the skin tones, but I don't want to mess around with the kind of warm colors that are in her clothes, that are in the brickwork. Make sure it's not set to overlay, set to normal. Overlay can be handy, we looked at that earlier on, but in this case I just want to kind of like belt out this real quick. Zoom off to the side even. Okay. So at the moment, I'm just removing from the mask so that it's only working on his skin. Cool. All right. Now when we turn it back on, same thing, hold down the Option key on a Mac, Alt key on a PC. Now it should only be affecting the skin. Does he have yellow skin? A little bit too much. In this tutorial, I guess I'm trying to always go a little bit too far. So I'm going to click on it again, lower this down a bit. You might even turn down the opacity of this whole layer. So opacity, slide it down, just to warm it up. It was a bit gray before. I'm happy with that. Let's look at another way of doing it. So skin tone 2. This happens a lot when you're shooting on something like a cell phone, where you get some kind of reds in the skin. I'll show you a little trick for this. So we start the same way. So we go to select, we go to color range, we pick skin tones. Face detect in this case works really good. It's awesome. Fuzziness, I'm happy where it was. Click OK. So I've got a selection. Now it's up to you whether you're a curves or a levels person. I'm more of a levels man myself. Okay. And what we're going to do is instead of trying to adjust the whole thing, we work on just the red channel. Okay. There's information in all three of these channels. You can see green and blue are kind of in the middle here, but red is all kind of lumped to the side. So what we can do is kind of shift it. We can shift the midtones and maybe even some of the darker ones. Just to remove some of the red. On, off. It's pulling some of the color out of it here. So I'm going to use my Option or Alt key and just paint out the bits that I don't need. There's an easy way to select skin. And a few little extra tricks to work on your mask. You can move on now while I spend a while lots of clicking. Nice big paintbrush. Remember that shortcut. If you still can't remember, on a Mac, Control and Option key, drag left and right. And on a PC, you hold down the Control key, click and drag the right mouse button, the weird one, the right click. Click, hold and drag it left and right. Up and down is the hardness. All right, Option click it again. So just the skin, just working on the red channel. And in this case, I removed too much from the hand as well. Okay, so down here, there's a bit of red in it. So what I'm going to do is paint the other way. So a smaller paintbrush. I'm going to hit X on my keyboard to bring white to the front. I'm going to paint that out. Again, when you get into the corners, again, like I do that, and then toggle X to go back to the black key and just paint it in because it's quite forgiving because it's over this black stuff here. So paint that out, and I'm not even going to worry. Maybe that bit there. All right, so that's how to select skin tones. You might be warming it up with color balance. You might be removing some of the reds. If it's got a cyan cast or a green cast, you can do the same thing, but work on the green channel in levels, or blue, or green, or red. All right, that's it for this one. I will see you in the next video. Hi there, in this example, we are going to take our eyes and just give them a little boost, enhancing what's there using the dodge and burn and the sponge tool. Let's do it now in Photoshop. All right, to get started, from your 10 retouching folder, open up Eyes 1. First thing we're going to do is we're going to duplicate it. So with the layer selected, Command J or Control J on a PC to duplicate the layer. Let's even give it a name. Call it Retouch. Now this video is all about enhancing what's there. The videos after this will look at faking it a little bit more. So let's look at enhancing rather than faking in this video. And we'll see how far we get. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to saturate the eyes. So the brown eyes, we're going to make them more brown. So click and hold down the dodge tool until you find the sponge tool. Sponge tool has two modes, desaturate and saturate. We want it on saturate. And in terms of the brush, we want something that's going to fit around the pupil. And in terms of the hardness, okay, I have my fully fuzzy, hardness of 0. And then with the flow, somewhere in the middle. What we're going to do is just slowly work. And when I say slowly, it's on 40%. It's going pretty fast, 52 exactly. So don't worry if you go too far. We're going to dial this back with the opacity, okay? So it's okay to go too far. This other side here is going to run into some problems because there's not a lot of saturated color in here. So I can keep working this. I can work a little bit, but eventually you're going to find that it's there, but it's a bit pixelated, not amazing. And that's going to be one of the issues, well, not the issues, but one of the things we run into when we're retouching, say this side here. It's a very strong light being used. Okay, so this side's always going to be dark, and you're going to have to live with it if you want this to be natural. But don't worry, I'll show you how to fake it. Let's say that works for us. Okay, so it's saturated now. Let's look at working with the lights and darks. So basically we want to make the kind of shines brighter and the pupils darker, and maybe a little bit around the outside too. The best way to do it is, it's in that same little group, dodge and burn. Dodge makes things whiter, burn makes things darker. So grab the little paddle. So we're going to brighten it up first. And what are we going to brighten? I'm going to brighten the highlights. I want the highlights to get brighter. Exposure is just like how much of this is being applied. I'm going to have mine low enough. I'm going to click this a couple of times just to brighten up the shine. Same this side. Not too far on this side, because remember this one is darker for a reason. You might decide that you want to lighten up some of the centers here as well. So you go to midtones, and I'm going to wreck it. But maybe this side just needs a little brightening up. I'm going to do the same with the eyes. In this case, because the eyes are quite gray, I'm going to use the midtones. I'm going to keep it quite low and just not too much. Everyone always goes too far using the burn tool, but that's okay. We can turn it down. Don't you worry. So how are we doing? Yes, yes. Last tool is the burn tool. And if you're like me looking for shortcuts, you can switch to the burn tool. Okay, and toggle between these two tools. It's no problem. But if you are on the dodge tool and you want to start burning something, so you're dodging the eye and then you want to burn this bit, just hold down the Option key on a Mac or the Alt key on a PC. Nothing really changes over here, except now these exact same settings are being used for the burn tool. You can see I can kind of darken up my midtones, or let's do it the long way, go to burn tool, and I'm gonna pick a size in here for the pupil, darken that up. Same on the side, darken that up. It's going on through too thick, so I'm going to lower down the exposure. And yes, it's way too far. But now we can, with this layer selected, go to the opacity and just kind of lower it down to something believable. Turn this layer on and off. You can see we've worked the eyes up without having to fake them. Now I picked this image because it's kind of in the middle, right? It is, the eyes aren't totally like obscured and pixelated, but it's not a super high res stock photography image. Okay, so I guess there's a bit of realism here. So first up, saturate them using the sponge tool, then dodge and burn them. Dodge makes the sparkles brighter, the whites of the eyes brighter, and the burn tool we just use for the pupils, and I use a little bit around the edge to define the eye a bit more. All on its own retouch layer so that we can lower the opacity. I'll show you one other way of doing it, and is it faking? Kind of no. I'd say this is enhancing. So I'm going to turn off my retouch layer and do a different method. So this is going to be my retouch 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my brush tool, pick a brush size that kind of fits with the eyeball there. Hardness, I'm going to bump up the opacity so you can see it there. Yep. Hardness, I'm going to have it about 80-ish. Now, I'm going to pick a foreground color that matches the eye color that I want. Let's say instead of like making them green or blue, let's just enhance the brown that's there. So I'm going to pick a kind of a warm, ochre, orangey color. And actually I'm going to lower the hardness a bit fuzzier. And I'm just going to work in the eye here. Pretty caveman. Okay, do the same on the other side. Zoom out, and then it's just finding a blending mode. So remember we had the problem before of there's just not a lot of hue in that eye to bring out. Remember we tried to use the sponge tool. Now, with this layer selected, let's work through the layer modes. Remember the shortcut is Move tool, hold Shift, and tap the plus key. Okay, or you can do it the long way. Just keep clicking on these until you find something that is, let's say, color dodge. Let's keep going. See what else is there. Color dodge. Saturation's quite nice. Color dodge is a bit extreme, so it will depend on the color you've chosen. Say you've chosen green eyes, you'll find a different one of these will work. Let's say color dodge is, it's cool, looks a little vampire-y, but we're gonna just lower the opacity to something more believable. So turn it on, turn it off. We might still go through and duplicate this layer and not use the saturation, but definitely use the dodge and burn. Where are you? Dodge. Just to make this a bit brighter. And my burn, holding down the option key, just to darken up the pupil there. Same on the side, darken up the pupil, dodge that out. All right, so kind of just a different way we get to a similar place, and it's mainly just changing the way we got the color. Was there existing color that we can enhance, or did we have to fake it? So on, off. So that's the second version, on and off. I'm just dragging across these eyes. And let's turn on this one here where we did the saturation with the sponge tool instead of this one. So this one versus this one. You got to decide. I think I like this one, but I think I like the saturation just down a little bit more believable. All right, that's it for phase 1 of eye retouching. Let's get into phase 2 where we fake it. But with faking it comes some pretty amazing results. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Hi there, in this video we are going to retouch the eyes with, I'm going to say, medium faking. We're going to add all this lovely detail into the eye. We know it's probably there, but it's milky and gray in the actual photograph. Let's look at how to create this now in Photoshop. All right, first thing is, if you're working through the tutorials, you can save and close the last one. It'll save as a PSD, because what I want to do is just reopen the JPEG again. So from 10, retouching, open up eyes 1, and we're back here. So what we want to do is we want to grab the adjustments panel, and we're going to use levels. And what we really want to do is, we're not worried too much about the rest of the document. We're just kind of zooming in on the eyes here. We want to enhance the eyes. And when I say enhance, we're not here to make them perfect. We just want more color out of it. Okay, just a richer, lighter color, even a bit extreme. Okay, so we're not worried about this. We're just getting some, let's have a look, on, off. Just a lot more light here in the eyes. Next thing we want to do is I want to remove this mask. You can click on the mask and just say invert it. So not really removing it, we're just painting it all in with black. And what we want to do is, with our brush tool, have white as the foreground color. And in terms of the size, it's going to get super small and super soft. So mine is 5 pixels, hardness of 0. Let's turn down the opacity a bit. When I say a bit, a lot, and let's zoom in. And what we want to do now is draw in the little lines that appear in eyes. Even that's too thick. So I'm going to go down even smaller, 2 pixels. It'll depend on your image, but something small like that. Because what we're trying to do, I'll show you this example. You can see this kind of gross zoom up of an eye. You can see all this detail in here, and that's what that kind of Milky Way galaxy awesome lines in here really help an image stand out. So plus we want these kind of like little ripples in here. So we're going to use this as our visual guide. Because what we're going to do is draw out little lines. And once you get started, it's going to look a bit weird and you're like, there's no way this is going to work. But just keep building it up. What you'll find, if you're like me, I can draw down fine. Drawing up this way gets a bit kind of weird. So what you can do is hold down the R key, hold it, click and drag, let go of it. And it means you can kind of just work around this eye in what's maybe just a bit more natural selection. And don't worry if it's not all perfect, okay? Because this kind of cross-hatching loopy stuff is fine. Plus we're gonna turn it off a little bit, lower it down later on. So what we're doing really is, we're not really drawing on it, we're just showing through in our mask. If I option click the mask or alt click the mask, we're just making little holes in it so we can see through. If I disable it, this kind of brighter area. That's what makes it look a little bit more natural than maybe just painting with the dodge tool. So keep going. Just keep overlapping, working your way around. R key, if you want to get rid of it, okay, you don't like the rotation anymore, escape key kind of gets it back to square one. R key again. What I'm going to try and do now is I'm going to try and do some of those little loops. Now I'm using my mouse mainly because if I use the Wacom, it comes out a lot better. And often people aren't using like a tablet. Tablet, the nice thing about it is that you'll end up having a little bit These are quite like fat lines, or at least they're not tapered at the ends. If you're using a Wacom tablet, you'll end up with just kind of nicer tapered lines. So if you are using a Wacom, you might find your result a little bit nicer. All right, you can start to see it's getting there. I'm gonna hit escape. There's a few little bits around the outside here that I need to remove. I got a bit crazy with it. So with the mask selected, I have black as my foreground color. I'm just gonna paint these out just so that it's not coming over the edges here. Not realistic. Now we're doing it with lighter colors. You can do the same thing. You can grab an adjustments layer. I'm gonna turn this one off. Go to levels. And in this one, I'm going to darken it down. And do the same thing. Click on the mask, invert it. I'm going to turn the other layer back on. With this one on the top, I've got my layer selected. I'm just going to paint in some of the darker bits. Same thing, same sort of brush. What did I have? 2, 3 pixels? I can't remember. Make sure weight's your foreground color and just kind of paint in a few of these other bits. I'm going to raise my opacity of mine to maybe 60%. Maybe some shorter little lines. Zoom out a little bit. What do you think? It's kind of cool, huh? So turn these off, turn these on. This goes into my little bit of fakery, bit clear conscience retouching. They're probably in there. I just kind of brought them out. You can see my terrible drawing actually kind of adds to this effect. What I might do just to finish it up is background layer. I'm going to duplicate it because I'm going to do some dodging on this. Dodging has to happen on the pixels. So it's destructive. So I'm going to do it on its own layer. So dodge tool, like in the last one, I'm going to just enhance these a bit. I'm set to midtones. It's not what I want. I want to grab the highlights. I got my exposure down quite low, and I'm just going to pop these up a little bit. Same with the eyes, not much. Actually, those need to be midtones because they're quite gray. They're not operating like we know they're white, but Photoshop sees them as kind of midtones. We'll do the same over here, just a little bit. Same for that. I'm going to switch to the burn tool. Okay, and I am going to burn the iris. I want to say iris. You'll see that we don't have it over here. So I'm going to grab both these layers. I'm going to hold down I'm going to go to my move tool, hold down my option key on a Mac, alt key on a PC to duplicate them. And you can see I'm just moving the mask, which is quite cool. So even though this side here is a lot darker, it's not bringing all these light bits. It's just bringing the mask across, showing through the darker version of this eye. Quite realistic if you ask me. You could go and redo it for the side as well if you wanted. If you felt like there were some repeating bits that were quite obvious. I think it's not. I think it's fine. All right, so let's compare it. Let's look at the background layer here. Let's hold down the option key on a Mac, alt key on a PC, and it just turns them all off except for this one, and all back on. All on, all off. Let's look at this eye especially. It's my favorite eye. It's the good eye. What I might do with the dodging there, always go too far, just lower it down a bit. On, off, a bit nicer. Again, option or alt click this, and I'm happy with that. All right, if you're not happy with that, we're gonna steal a trick from the last tutorial. Okay, so just a new layer on top of everything else. Let's call this one eye color, and we're just gonna use our blending mode again. So brush tool, I've picked a color for the eyes. It can be a different color. I'm just gonna use the same color brown. Turn my opacity up. Okay. Make sure the edges of your brushes are kind of fuzzy so you don't get into the whites of the eyes. You can color it all in. It's pretty basic. Wow, pretty simple tool to do. So not changing the color. You could totally change the color if you were using green or blue. Now the trick is to find a believable blending mode. Like we did before, move tool, hold shift, hit plus, and just work your way through until becomes like a werewolf vampire. Color dodge. Looking for something a little bit more believable. Okay, color dodge is working for me, just the opacity. So I'm just going to tap the number keys, 50. It's going to come right down to maybe 30%. On, off. So now let's check it. Let's hold down the Option key, Alt key. All right, looking cool. If you still want more, there's one more eye retouching video where we totally fake it. It's kind of creepy, but it's kind of fun, and it works 60% of the time, every time. I'll see you there. Hi there, this video is all about fully faking an eye. We take the original image here, and we fill out all the detail in the eye by doing something a little bit creepy with this one. All right, time to get creepy. All right, from your 10 retouching folder, open up eyes 1 and 2 again. You might have to save and close the previous exercise. All right, so 1 and creepy eye 2. And yes, it is what you imagine. So I found this eye mainly because it has a full kind of pupil in here. So I can use it for all sorts of situations. What sorts of situations? One eye's blinking, one eye's closed, one eye's a little bit lower than the rest of them. They're just really out of focus. So the previous 2 videos are just not going to work. So I am going to grab my quick selection tool and I'm going to select all of this. There's some bits up here that I don't want. Not worried too much about it. There's quite a forget. All right, time for a class project. You might have noticed throughout this course I've sometimes called it class exercise, sometimes class project. You've probably seen that. I'm gonna try and remember to call it class projects from now on. What I want you to do, we've gone through 3 different ways of doing eyes, enhancing it. Remember dodging, burning, and increasing saturation using the sponge tool. That was the first one. Then we made an adjustments levels layer. You could use curves. And then we painted those lines in. Then the last one, we totally faked it. We used somebody else's eyes, found a good blending mode, and used that to create the detail in the eye. So in your exercise files, under 10 retouching in class project, there are these 3. Work your way through all 3 of them, okay, with the 3 different techniques, hone and practice your skills, and then share them with me. When you do share them, I'd love to know what you did, which technique you used, maybe a mixture of both of them. I can't wait to see what you do. All right, on to the next video. Hi there, this video is all about teeth whitening, before, after, before, after. It's easy to do, and the cool thing about it is once you've done it once, you can reuse it over and over. Ready? That is the after, ready, before, after, before, after. It's a nice retouching trick. Let's learn how to do it now in Photoshop. All right, to get started, from your 10 retouching folder, open up teeth 1 and 2. Let's start with number 1. To get started, let's make a real just basic selection. So I'm going to use the quick selection tool. I'm going to zoom in, brush size. I'm just going to pick the teeth, but not the gums. But we're not spending too much time here. Okay, it's easier just to get most of it done and then brush in the edges using your brush tool a little bit later on. Don't get the gums. Don't get the gums. But again, we are going to fix this later on, so don't worry too much about it. All right, most of the teeth. All right, first up is we need some consistent color because there's bits of whites and bits of yellow. You might have darker bits of brown in there as well. So what we need to do is get some consistency. Easiest way is to go to your adjustments panel. We're going to use the hue and saturation. And what we want to do is colorize it. It's kind of weird, right? But at least it's a consistent color. We don't want it to be consistently pink. So crank up the saturation until you find you want a yellow color. I know we're just trying to get rid of yellow, but I'll show you what I mean in a second. So if you find just a kind of a warm yellow, just something like that, and then crank the saturation way down. Because if you go 0 saturation, nobody has that white teeth, or at least gray teeth. So you need some yellow in there. And that's the trick. Because it's not perfectly white, there needs to be some yellow in there. So let's turn it off. So lots of yellow and inconsistent yellow, whereas just a little subtle hint of yellow. So that's one part. Next part is we need to make them more white, or at least seem more white. So what we're going to do is grab the rectangle tool, pick a fill color of white, and just make sure you draw a rectangle across the whole lot of the teeth, covering it up. So I want to mask this white into the teeth. So what I could do is hold Command on a Mac or Control key on a PC to get that selection and have like 2 selections going. So I've applied a layer mask to this one as well, but the trouble is we'll end up having to adjust a couple of different layers. So it's a stage like this where it's really handy to have this layer mask on a group and just have everything inside of it. We're gonna have 3 layers. levels, this white rectangle, and this hue and saturation. And we'll just get them all to use the same mask. So I'm going to undo that. I want the selection, which is cool, and I want to delete that layer mask. So I've right clicked it. I'm going to select both of these, hit this little folder down here, put into a group, and now apply the layer mask to that group. Just means that these guys here don't need their own individual masks. So that doesn't look amazing. We're going to fix the edges. The first thing you want to do is have your rectangle selected, and we're going to play with a blending mode. Okay, so remember, I'm going to click on one of them, then make sure I'm on my move tool, hold shift, hit plus, and just kind of work your way through until you find one that you feel works. It's probably going to be soft light. It's not always though, so I guess I want you to have a work your way through and find one that works. Soft light here makes it nice and white. Probably a little too strong, so we're going to lower down the opacity. Again, we're not worrying too much about the edges. We're going to feather those out. To check how far we've come, who remembers what I can click here just to turn that layer on by itself and turn all the others off? You remember? Yeah, you do. If you're on a Mac, it's Option and give the eyeball a click, or Alt on a PC. So definitely more white, not super believable just yet. We're going to do two more things. One is the levels. We just need to increase. There's just kind of it's too washed out in lots of places here. But let's create an adjustments levels. And in here, we're just looking to just maybe bring up the blacks a little bit, just so that there's a bit more kind of contrast in the teeth. Don't want to go too low with the midtones. Let's keep those nice and high. And maybe a little bit higher here. And the highlights. That's up to you. Do this levels need to be turned down a bit? And maybe this hue and saturation. Okay, does it need less of the yellow? Maybe just a touch. Before we go and adjust all three of these, let's kind of blend the edges a little bit better. You could go and see how well you go with just selecting the mask, going to select the mask, and to see how you go with feather. I'm probably gonna start with feather and then brush it in. Let's click OK. It's really better. Undo, redo. That might be enough for you, but you might have teeth in the background here that it, let's turn this one on and off. I'm okay with it actually. I might feather it a bit more, but I also want to show you, let's just work on the mask with the brush tool. Make sure on your brush tool here, I was using a special effect brush, go back to general brushes and just pick the first one. And I have my flow at 100% and maybe turn down the opacity a little bit. What I'm trying to do in here is there just needs to be a little bit more of a realistic blend between the gum. And if your selection was really bad, you'll probably have to go and spend a bit more time just kind of making sure this kind of transition between the teeth and the edges here, just working the edges just a little bit to have a little bit of realism between the transition of pearly whites to this kind of more hiding underneath the lip. Should be a little darker. Maybe not these guys. Definitely here in the gums, you can see the gums ended up going quite white. So what I'm going to do is to get into this little area here, I'm going to go to 100% opacity. I'm going to paint it out. Okay, toggle the foreground and background color over here using the X key and just paint it back in. It's easier to get into the corners that way. Same with you, X. Paint it out, X again to toggle it back. So black is at my foreground. I'm happy enough. Now we've got our blend working better. We've got to kind of walk around your office or your lounge, wherever you're at, because after looking at it a while, it becomes really hard to know whether you've gone too far or not far enough. So go make a cup of tea, come back, and then look at it and go, is this believable? If you're finding it's not, after a little walk around the room, come in and start working through the levels. Click on the levels part and decide, do I need more of this, less of that? Does the whole layer need to be turned down in terms of the opacity? The white triangle here. Okay, we pick soft light. You might try a different blend mode. The opacity might be needed to turn down a little bit. And under hue and saturation, does it need more yellow or less yellow? Too gray. All right, let's go for the big reveal. Let's hold down Option, click on the eyeball, or Alt, a whole lot better. find I close one eye. I'm not sure why. Whenever I'm kind of checking it out, I'm like, yeah, this is looking good. Close one eye. Does it look good in one eye? The other eye? I doubt that helps. That's what I do. Now, once you've spent a bit of time creating these 3 little layers, you can totally reuse these. So what we're going to do is grab the group. Okay, and this is going to be my teeth whitening layer. And let's say teeth 2. This is a bit more of a realistic example. I guess nobody gets that sort of close in. What you end up with is kind of generic. This photograph's not amazing. If you zoom in, it's kind of a little bit out of focus. But the teeth need to be fixed, okay, tidied up. They're not terrible teeth, but they could use a lick of white paint. So, move tool, select the group, Command C, Command V. It's brought through that group of whitening. All we need to do is right click, delete the layer mask, make sure that this white box is over his teeth. You might just make that white box huge so that the next image you use, you don't have to be as specific. And what we're gonna do is let's click on the background layer. We're gonna add a layer mask, and a cool little trick is instead of like adding a layer mask and then trying to paint it all out or fill it with black, what you can do is as you click layer mask, hold down the Option key on a Mac, Alt key on a PC, and it just applies a layer mask, but the inverted version. Instead of a white mask, it's a black mask. And what we can now do is grab our paintbrush and either start with the quick selection tool or just start with a brush like I am, picking a hardness that kind of matches the edges of the teeth here. I'm using white as my foreground color. My opacity is up 100%. I might turn the opacity down to something like 50 by tapping 5 on my keyboard and just slowly but surely working the teeth. Okay, again, we're gonna have to probably do some adjustments. Okay, levels and the hue and saturation to make this thing believable. But you've got all most of the work done in the group. Okay, and there's just some tweaking you need to do. Looking loads better already. Okay. Remember the R key. Okay. If you need to move it around. All right, escape to rotate it around. I'm leaving just a little bit of yellow in the corners there. Don't want to get too far removed from real life. A whole lot better. On, off, and now you can go through, drop this down and decide, do I need to mess with the levels a bit more? Maybe lower them down a little bit, raise them up a bit. Okay, make your tiny adjustments. Too much, too little. A little bit. Nice. Hue and saturation, I'm happy with how the saturation is. Cool. Option click, on, off, on, off. And that, my friends, is how to whiten teeth using a mixture of hue, saturation, a big old white layer, and levels. Now with levels, that sometimes is optional. Okay, it doesn't always need it. It did in these 2 examples, but lots of times it doesn't. And if you keep them in a nice little group, you can reuse them on different documents. All right, friends, I will see you in the next video. Hi, everyone. It's class project time. I'm going to set you loose on a project we started in a previous tutorial. It's the one we did with eyes. So in your 10 retouching under class project, there's a file in there called eyes C. So we did the eye. So hopefully you've done that. Don't worry if you haven't, but grab this file and we're going to work on the teeth. So her teeth are perfect. So we're going to have to be reasonably subtle with this one, but use the same techniques. Okay, so there'll be a hue and saturation layer, there'll be a white layer with the blending mode, and we're gonna adjust the levels. I want you to see if you can get it so that it's hard to tell. You can make gleaming white teeth if you like. Maybe make 3 versions. Before, realistic, and then Colgate smile. And what I'd love you to do is, I'd love you to share it, but I want to share the before and after. So take a screenshot of it as this, and your version that you've finished. And maybe the super gleaming white version if you want to as well. I'd love to see it. Drop it in the assignments or in the comments or tag me in social media. All right, I will see you in the next video. Hi there, me again. If you enjoyed the video, could you give it a thumbs up? Consider subscribing to my channel as well. I give away lots of this free stuff. This particular video is just one video of over 100 videos that's in my full Photoshop Advanced course. So there'll be a link in the description for that if you want to go check that out. All right, happy YouTubing.